you're like me and enjoy all things anime, manga, Japanese video games, basically anything that's Japanese pop culture, then the mecca all around the world where you can find all this stuff is in Japan's Akihabara district in Tokyo. And when I heard that they were making a game completely based around this subsection of the town, I was pretty excited. Having been to Akihabara myself, I was pretty excited to see what the town was going to be like, how accurately they're going to recreate it, and just some of the activities you're able to do in it. Now, while Akiba's trip certainly has its share of fan service and the main story is pretty silly, the actual side activities you're able to do and the world that they've created is pretty accurate to the actual town. Now, while it's definitely getting a lot of hate and a lot of people are quick to dismiss it as this game where you just rip people's clothes off, there's actually a lot of cool stuff underneath it that a lot of people aren't talking about. And hey, if you can't afford a plane ticket and a week's vacation to Japan, for $40, Akiba's trip might just be the next best thing. So, let's take a look.
I want us to make Akiba a peaceful place very soon, so we can all cosplay together without a care on our faces.
Now, the story of Akiba's trip starts off where you're basically in a job interview. You're applying to be a test subject for some new products, and it doesn't turn out exactly like you might think. It turns out they're doing some experimentations on you to essentially turn you into a vampire and drain the life of Akihabara. Now, of course, you're not exactly excited for this, and this girl Shizuku rescues you and kind of tells you the plot behind these guys calling themselves the Synthesters. Essentially, they're vampires, and they want to go around at Akiba and suck all the life out of it and take it over as their hub town, and then eventually expand it all over the world and create this crazy vampire army. Now, lucky for you, you just happen to have a group of friends calling themselves the Akiba Freedom Fighters, and their main goal is to basically keep Akihabara safe. They're all, you know, what you would call otakus. They're all fans of Japanese culture, anime, and whatnot, and they really have a special place for Akiba in their hearts, and so they want to protect the town, and once they learn of this Synthester threat, they're all on board to go stop it, and that's essentially where the story takes off. Now, as many of you have seen in trailers or previews or just news articles, yes, the game does have this mechanic where you rip people's clothes off, and while the reason behind it is kind of silly, it makes a little bit of sense. Essentially, like I said, you are battling vampires, and the only way you can expose them or do damage to them is beat up their clothes enough and then rip them off, and they basically melt in the sun. It's pretty silly, and there's some fan service to it, but that's basically what that thing's all about. Now, nobody ever gets naked, so I will throw that out there. This game is not NC-17, nothing crazy is gonna happen, but of course there is some ripping of clothes, so if that makes you a little bit uncomfortable, then this game might not be for you, because there's definitely a lot of that. Now, that aside, there's actually some really funny dialogue and some good translation for this game. There's a lot of different characters, all different types, mostly anime archetypes, but all have a very special place for Akiba in their heart, and you can have, you know, there's branching dialogue with different characters, you can make choices, and depending on what you say to certain characters actually affects the outcome of the game. There's a ton of different endings, and there's definitely room for repeat playthroughs, and if you don't do all the side quests and you're just wanting to go through repeat playthroughs, it'll take you about somewhere between 8 to 10 hours. Especially, you know, you get the New Game Plus and you'll have all your abilities and items and stuff, so it might be worthwhile for extra playthroughs just to see how these different dialogue branches take off into the end of the game and how it affects the end of the game. Now, personally, I felt like the main story was a little bit silly. It's not exactly the most intriguing or the most compelling or well told. It's a typical silly anime plot, but where I found the most enjoyment was actually in the side missions where you're deviating from the story and you're just able to explore and you're able to do fun little side activities around the town. You know, you have stuff that ranges from taking photographs of the town for a travel agency, helping a shy, kind of nerdy guy get some nice clothes and feed him some lines to this girl he's wanting to confess to, and all kinds of stuff in between, like possibly helping a girl find different girls to start her own maid cafe. So it's a little bit silly, and like I said, those are the activities that I found the most enjoyment out of, because the main story missions and the main campaign pretty much just consisted of fighting. Essentially, you'll be sent on patrol missions to different sections of the town to kind of clear them out of these synthesters, and of course that consists of beating them up, ripping their clothes off, and moving on to the next mob. But there's definitely a lot of variety of the combat, which I thought was unexpected. I pretty much thought it was going to be just one kind of brawler moveset, and that's going to be it. But there's a ton of different types. There's fist weapons, there's sword types, there's heavy swords, and then there's like computer equipment. You can fight people with all kinds of weird objects, like a gumball dispenser, I think there's all kinds of meat, a leek, an umbrella, and anything else in between. And then of course you got your standard weapons like wooden swords, just gloves, and all kinds of crazy stuff. The other part that I actually thought was kind of fun was being able to customize your character with their outfits, because the more damage you can prevent yourself from taking, the longer you can last in battles, essentially, because the only way somebody's able to rip your own clothes off is if they do enough damage to certain parts of your body. So to have better equipment suited for that really helps. But also it's kind of nice to keep it silly, and you gather all kinds of items. You can shop to different shops around the town, or just collect items from the ones you defeated to make your own custom costume, basically, for your character. And once you get past a certain point in the game, you're able to equip different team members of your team with different outfits and gear and all kinds of stuff to make your own cool team, or make them look goofy if you want to. Now, like I said at the beginning of this video, while there is the silly story about fighting vampires and there's the ripping your clothes off and you can customize your characters, I really want to talk about the aspect that I think is really cool, and that is just how much of a one-to-one recreation this game is of the actual Akihabara district in Tokyo. Now, like I said, I actually did have a chance to go there while I lived in Korea from 2009 to 2010, and I was actually really shocked at how accurate stuff was. And it got me a little bit nostalgic as well. I was going through old photos and old video clips that I recorded on my trip there, and I was like, wow, I remember going to those exact spots, and it's like down to the detail. There's like this one camera shop called Akiba Yodobayashi, something like that, and it's got like the names of like Nikon and Sony on the side of the building, but in the game they change it for something to, you know, obviously so they don't get hurt for legal purposes. But it's an exact one-to-one recreation, so it was really cool kind of comparing pictures I took and looking back on video clips that I had shot to see just how accurate it was, and it very much is. So for anybody that can't afford to make a trip to Japan, because it's very expensive, but wants to know what it's like there, this is a very accurate representation. Now, I will say that the game is not like seamless open world. There's definitely a lot of loading screens, which was a little bit unfortunate. I thought it would have been kind of a more seamless experience, but there's a lot of loading screens between the different transition areas. Not to mention there's a lot of pop-in with NPC characters. It takes anywhere between 10 to 20 seconds for them all to load, so that's a little bit unfortunate. Hopefully when the eventual PS4 version comes out, that fixes it. But nonetheless, going around to the different shops to see what they have to sell, see the different buildings, just walking around, you're able to take pictures. There's an actual picture-taking mechanic in the game, so that's really fun. So for those of you that really want to kind of just do it for that experience, I think that's worth it. And honestly, the roaming around and doing all the side missions, to me at least, was a lot more fun than the main story. So you could really get yourself lost in this game for dozens of hours doing all the side missions, which there are a lot of, and just exploring around and seeing all the fun and goofy things there are that this game has to offer. Now, I completed the game in about 9 hours. I didn't do a ton of the side missions, but if you did want to do some of the side missions, there's definitely a lot to do. You could probably squeeze another, I don't know, 5 to 10 hours by doing all the side missions. And as I said, there's a new game plus, and there's definitely a lot of dialogue, branching dialogue trees that will make for a different outcome at the end of the game, depending on how you interact with certain characters. So there's a ton of replay value, and for $40, and it's available for either PS3 or PS Vita, and eventually on PS4, I think it's a great value. You'll definitely get your money's worth on this game.
We should hurry back. If we take too long, Pops will enter Fury mode.
Well guys, that's my review for Akiba's trip. It was a little disappointing in some ways with, obviously they didn't have the technical prowess to make it a fully seamless open world, and there's some loading and pop-in errors, and you know, the graphical fidelity is not that great. But Xseed, I think, put in a lot of extra work. The game's fully voiced in Japanese or English, so for people that like to have both, there's definitely that. And the writing is pretty witty. There's a lot of, jokes in the game industry that you'll be able to get if you, see enough of it. And I really do think for people that have not been to Japan and really want to, this is probably the next best thing you're going to be able to get, because it really is accurate. And I'll take that from somebody that's actually been there. So if you're looking for a deep game with like crazy combat, I don't know if that's it, but if you just want a game that's fun to explore the town, and there's some silly side quests, and it gives you a good feel of what Japan is actually like, then I highly recommend Akiba's Trip, because I had a lot of fun with it, and it definitely brought back a lot of memories from my time there. Now the game has been out a little while as of the time of this recording, so if you've played the game, let me know which version you've got and what you think of the game, if you're enjoying it, if you were a little disappointed, or maybe you're waiting for that PS4 version, which should hopefully help with some of the load times. Anyways guys, thank you so much for watching, I really appreciate it. Definitely leave a like if you liked the video, it always helps with spreading the word of the channel. And I really appreciate that. The channel's really been growing ever since I've been doing consistent videos, so I really want to thank you a lot for that. It really means a lot to know that I dedicate myself to something that you guys will watch. So thank you so much for watching and for subscribing, and we'll see you next time.